You can feel the emotion this many years later, watching the reaction, Robert Durst and his attorneys, after that shocking not guilty verdict in Galveston, Texas. This is a guy who dismembered his neighbor after what he claims was a self-defense scenario. Just an unbelievable job by his defense team to come up with the narrative that he dismembered his neighbor, of course, because he had to get rid of the body because people thought he was a murderer. Of course, makes perfect sense. Hey, bottom line is it worked. Still with us, criminal defense attorney and former federal prosecutor Lara Yeretsian. Lara, that was one of those moments, and it reminds everybody. It's like the Casey Anthony trial. There are trials where you go in thinking, oh, the dude is so guilty, and at the end of it all, boom, juries can surprise, can they not?
Yes, I mean, this was one of those, obviously. I mean, even I was holding my breath, listening and waiting for the jury to come out. It's one of the toughest moments for any criminal defense lawyer or defendant. And it can happen just because someone seems to be guilty. It doesn't mean that they are guilty. It doesn't mean that they're going to be convicted. Clearly, Robert Durst, in that particular case, made a very good witness and convincing enough that the jury bought into his explanation of what had happened, and clearly his lawyers did a great job. And it's also very likely, just as a jury found, that he was not guilty in that case. We have to take what the jury has given us. And now we've got another case. And the reason as I was saying earlier, yes, he was acquitted on that case. But now we're going to have 3 trials within one, and it's going to be a little difficult, even though I believe that there isn't really sufficient evidence to find him guilty. But the impact and the weight of 3 different killings is pretty heavy.
Why don't you think there's enough for a guilty verdict in this case, if you were to take away those other 2?
If you were to take the other 2, I mean, it's going to have to be circumstantial evidence. And if you take the other 2, you're taking a big chunk of the motive, really, or the motive entirely. So if you're taking the other 2 murders out, how are they going to explain why, number one, why would he have killed his good friend? That's number one. The other is it's a lot of innuendo, a lot of hearsay evidence, things that may have been said about the relationship with Berman, or the possibility that maybe she was involved or she helped him cover up his tracks with the killing of his wife. And we still don't know. Did he really kill her? How believable or credible are some of these witnesses? There's nothing to physically really connect him to the crime. No forensic evidence. If there was anything of his, I mean, they're friends. He may have left some of his hair or whatever. So there's really nothing truly substantial to really connect him directly to the killing, other than there was one letter, but that they can always explain. My understanding is he's already admitted that that's a letter that he had sent to the police with the word cadaver and the address on it. But even that, his lawyers, that's probably the worst evidence. If you put aside the 2 previous killings, the worst evidence connecting him to Susan Berman's murder in this case is really that one letter that he's admitted that he sent. But even that can be explained away. He may have found out about it. He may have he found out about it, or maybe he hadn't been in touch with her. She hadn't returned his calls. There may have been an explanation why he would tip the police to something like that.
What about his physical appearance? We just watched the Weinstein scenario unfold with his walker, and now he has become, he's aged considerably. He's in a wheelchair. Does that garner sympathy, or does it make jurors think, oh, God, he couldn't have done this? Or is it sort of a moot point because of the time that has passed?
Well, we saw what it did in the Weinstein case. Not much. It didn't really make a difference, obviously. In this case, it shouldn't make a difference. Of course, it's natural for people to feel sympathetic to someone who looks small and weak. But these are killings that had happened, or murders that have happened. One's 20 years ago, the other one's over almost 28 years ago. So these are years ago, at a time when he was stronger. younger, possibly more capable physically of committing murders.
Sure, makes perfect sense. All right, final thought. Yes or no? Does Durst go down this time around?
There's a pretty decent likelihood that he could, but I think he's got amazing lawyers, and they're going to put up a fight. Hopefully, one of the biggest problems he has this time, and it's a behemoth that cannot be ignored, is that he's technically already been convicted in the public's eye, in the media, no thanks to the show, The Jinx, and a lot of the publicity and the media coverage in the case. It's something that cannot be ignored, even in light of weak evidence in a case. That's always going to be in the courtroom. It's impossible almost. It's not possible in my eyes for a jury to completely ignore that. It's going to be there in the courtroom, whether we like it or not.
All right, Lara, Yeretsian, thanks so much for joining us. Great to see you. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll have an update on Cult Mom making that transition from Hawaii to Idaho. We'll have the latest on that.